Hello, I'm back with a special 1920 diary entry, and it's special because it is the entry for New Year's Eve. In fact, Dmitri writes, erroneously, at the head of this diary entry, 31/18 December 1921. So it was 1921 on January 1st, not on the 31st of December. But that's all right. We know where we're at, or rather, I should say, we know when we're at. And he's still in Monte Carlo. It's a Friday, and he was writing this in the usual place in the Hotel de Paris in room 237. So if you remember, the previous day he had a very nice time out with the Radzivils and got home quite late at 3 a.m. And of course, pretty much all leisure time in the evening in Monte Carlo and even in the afternoon is apparently spent in the casino. And I myself have never been there, but if any of you have, you should post something. That would be fun. So this is a longish diary entry, but there are no big introductions or anything like that. And let's see, only 2 blank areas at the end. There's a big one because he'd attached some photograph or news clipping in his diary. He did that a lot, but usually he did it, he referenced it in the diary and said what it was. And when they were cataloging these and photographing these at Harvard at the Houghton Library, I hope that's the way you pronounce it, they removed the things that he had attached to the pages, especially the photographs. They didn't always remove the clippings, and they photographed them as well, and they put them at the end of the microfilm reels of each microfilm reel. And I have been digitizing my microfilm copies, but I have not yet done the material at the end of this particular volume, so I can't tell you what the photograph is. I'll have to post that later. And I bring it up because on the page where Dmitri attached it, it looks like, from the impression that was left, it looks like he used little bits of tape. And unfortunately, either when that was removed or when he was originally doing it, the tape obscured some of the words that he had written. So that's why at the end, the concluding sentence I do not have, but it's very easy to see where it was going. Okay, so let's dive in. I got up relatively late and spent the morning writing. I went to the Polovtsov's place, Saint-Roman, for lunch. The atmosphere there is still strained, because of Gulya's strange behavior and his mood. I went back to the Hotel de Paris around 3:30, did some more writing, then went downstairs to have tea with Papa Dominic and Dolly Radzivil. Then we went to the casino. I dined that evening at the Polovtsovs, then we all went to the casino. The people there were a little dressed up because of the New Year. I played well. I gambled well and won quite a lot, around 5,000. So we decided to go have supper and greet the New Year at the Café de Paris. I invited Dolly and her father, and in addition to Maria, Gulya, and the Polovtsovs, Sofka was also there. There were tons of people, and I have to say it was great fun. It was so successful that we stayed until 4 a.m. and parted in a muddled state. Sofka Polovtsov is a completely different person when she's part of a group and away from Sasha. So this is the end of this book and the end of this year. It was full of expectations and hope, but nothing came of that. I have to hope that next year my diary entries will record at least some improvement and not just disappointment and the end of hope. And where will I be, and under what circumstances will I be finishing my diary next year? God grant, ... Okay, so interesting stuff. This is, I can tell you, very much his habit to get up in the morning at whatever time he ends up getting up and spending the morning writing, which he took very seriously. So I think I explained before about his unusual habit of doing large chunks of writing and then going back and reviewing his notes and doing a diary entry for each day. So this New Year's Eve diary entry would have been written, anywhere from 7 to 10 days after the actual experience, the actual day. And he would have reconstructed it based on his notes, as well as his memories, of course. Okay, so let's see. He seemed a little surprised that people were dressed up at the casino that evening, and maybe when he was with his sister and their Russian friends, they weren't so tuned into the idea of it being New Year's Eve, although the Radzivills certainly would have been. So in terms of what a person wore to the casino in the evening, I just assumed that everybody would be dressed up anyway, that they would be wearing black tie and or evening dress. But maybe they were wearing some additional things as well, the kind of New Year's Eve, I don't know, party hats and things like that people wore. All right. So Dimitri's luck is good this evening. He wins quite a lot, around 5,000. I assume that is francs, although he doesn't say. So now he can be the big spender. Now he always really enjoyed the role of host, and now he can actually do that. And presumably it's a pleasure to him to be able to repay Dolly and Papa Dominic for the dinners and tea or lunch or whatever the things were that they invited him to. So he invites them, and instead of going to the Carlton, which apparently was less expensive, to have their supper, this time they go to the Café de Paris. And I don't know if Dimitri was footing the bill for everyone, but I think he must have been, because he invited them to this more expensive place, the Café de Paris. So in the group we have Maria, Gulia, the Polovtsovs, Dolly, Papa Dominic, and Sofka Polovtsov. So Gulia was there. Interesting. And Dimitri doesn't say that there was tension that evening. It sounds like everybody was having a good time. Maybe Gulia was getting over it a little bit. We'll see in future diary entries about that. And unlike his usual thing, when there's a crowd of people, he usually doesn't like it. But this evening, the atmosphere is a good one. It's New Year's Eve. Everybody's happy. The war is behind them. And so they have fun. And they stay up till 4 a.m. And yeah, they've gotten a little drunk. And Sofka Polovtsov, the wife of this rather severe Sasha, who's a very serious person and was in the government in Imperial Russia and quite critical of the Grand Dukes. He's apparently a wet blanket, but he's not there. And when Sofka is away from him, Dmitri observes she is a different person. Okay, so then there's this little concluding part. If you look at Dimitri's diaries from 1917 on, you're always going to find this little concluding part where amongst the emigres there's this hope more than an expectation, although earlier on there was actually also an expectation that they were going to be able to go home and resume life in a somewhat similar way to what it had used to be. But of course, those hopes were and would continue to be dashed. And so at the end of every one of Dimitri's diary years, you always have the same, almost word for word, the same phrase: where am I going to be next year at this time, and what will I be writing in my diary? So it's rather poignant that he's writing here that he's hoping there will at least be some improvement and not just disappointment and the end of hope. The Civil War is already winding down at this point. General Wrangel has appeared in France, and so hope was definitely dwindling. But, you know, what could they do? And Dimitri, whether it was more superstition or general or genuine religious sentiment, always also and frequently in his diaries invokes God, and, you know, God grant or God preserve could have been just a formula, but my impression is that even though he wasn't a terribly religious person, it was still meaningful to him. All right, so we make the big leap now and resume in 1921. So an eventful year, I can tell you. So do come back for that, and I will see you then. Bye.